Hi, I'm Frank Daly, and this is That Sounds Interesting podcast. Today, my guest is Matthias Müller-Krey, who has had a very interesting career from a lawyer to an editor to a course developer most recently and to being a speechwriter. The speechwriting is what we're going to focus on mostly, but we'll cover all the other areas. So welcome, Matthias. I'm delighted to have you on my podcast today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Matthias, as I mentioned in my introduction there, you've had quite a varied career, and maybe we can just discuss some elements of that from when you moved from being a lawyer into actually being an editor, and then we'll move on from that over time.
I finished my degree in 2004, my lawyer's degree, my bar exam, and I didn't really want to work in that field, but at the time the labor market for people with a legal background was so terrible that I had to take on some freelance work as a lawyer, and never really suited me. And then I started to leave that work, and the recovery process from being a lawyer is still going on. No, and I tried to find. I wanted to do something with writing, and I started to look for work as an editor. But I mean, as we all know, like the publishing business is a dying industry, more or less. So it was really hard to land a job, and I had no background. I had no formal training as an editor, and so it was quite hard. It took me over a year, but then I finally was able to get a job and at least move into the direction of where I wanted to go.
I know you worked for I think it's 4 years that you worked for as an editor in a legal area, I guess, using your background from being a lawyer.
It wasn't really a legal editor's job, but it was my legal degree was what allowed me to get that job. So it was a legal publishing house that was basically working in the area of like labor law and social law, and they wanted to have like some kind of magazine, some journalistic publication that would make it more attractive to their customers to subscribe to their otherwise legal publication. So it was an interesting time. It was like the crisis of 2008. So many people got fired. There was a lot of tension in the labor markets, and working in that field at that particular time was actually very interesting.
How did you go from being an editor suddenly to being a speechwriter? That was quite a transition.
Yeah, I think the thing is that because the labor market was bad, and also like I didn't really know what I wanted, the jobs that I landed as a lawyer and later as an editor, they were all not like really. I didn't really enjoy these jobs, and especially my editor's job at the end was. There was a lot of tension, a lot of conflict. So I decided to leave, and I decided to do something that I really wanted to do. The only problem was that I had no idea what that could be, you know. And all I knew was that, but I knew that I wanted to be, that I wanted to have a job where I don't have to be in one specific city or in one office, and I knew that it should have to do something with writing, and I wanted it to be like more lucrative than journalism, for example, would be. And so I just had these overall conditions that I thought my new job should fulfill. And then I had a list of ideas, and one that was pretty high on the top was speechwriter. So I decided to do that.
Oh, wow, actually. So from having no experience of being a speechwriter, you suddenly decided that you were going to be a speechwriter. So I guess you had to take some training then, did you?
Actually, when I decided to become a speechwriter, I had never written a speech in my life. But I had written like editorials in our magazine, and I knew that this kind of more like emotional and like the direct, like addressing your audience directly, that this was the kind of writing that I knew that it would suit me. So, and then I had like all kinds of writing experience, and I took a 3 day. So what I did when I decided to become a speechwriter, I tried to find out who's the speechwriter in Germany with the best reputation, and I found that guy and I called him up and I said, I'm planning to become a speechwriter, and he said, oh, that's a great idea, and of course he sold me one of his like 3 day super expensive training courses right away, and I did that, and that was actually my formal training. I mean, I have learned so much about speech writing, and I've like read about it and listened to and read big speeches and this kind of stuff. But this course was the only formal. Maybe I should say that in public, but it's but
No,
it's like
no,
the training that I had, and I just took it from there, and I was sure I could provide this kind of service better than many other people, and I've just offered it as a service. And so far, I think my clients are quite happy with the way I solve their problems.
So, how did people find you then? Because you're setting up as a speechwriter, and you say, "Okay, hey, I'm a speechwriter." Okay, how did people find where you were, what services you were offering? What did you do for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I think like speechwriter is a very unique profession. Um, not many people do this kind of work, and there's also like there is demand, but there's also not so much demand. So like you can't just set up a website and expect people to phone you up and hire you. So, and I knew that marketing would be probably the biggest challenge in this job, and it still is a big challenge. So I had a website that had to be well ranked, and also like at the beginning, I decided to really like to really go into it on the 2nd of January 2013, I think it was, when I really went for it. And then I did a lot of cold calling. I called like I decided to call 5 people who could potentially hire me every day. Cold call. So it's not like talking to the secretary, but actually like trying to get like the people, the decision makers on the phone. And I told them, hey, I'm a speechwriter, and they most of them would say, what is a speechwriter, or is that really a profession, or what do you want from us, and it's just, and they would say, we have never needed a speechwriter, we probably never will. But also like in that time I found but like every once in a while you call somebody and they would say, oh, you're a speechwriter, that's exactly what we need right now. And some of my most important clients are still from that time.
A lot of changes were happening for you in that case, because you had moved from Dusseldorf to Frankfurt, and then from Frankfurt to Berlin. Okay, so your locations had moved twice, and your career had completely changed from what it was before, and you were cold calling people to try and get business. So I guess it took a while to ramp up then.
Dusseldorf is my hometown, and I still like it very much. I went to Frankfurt for because I couldn't find a job anywhere else, and then I went to Berlin because it's this big city where just, and you tell people, oh, I'm starting over. Everyone, or most people you meet, are just starting a new thing, and that was a very inspiring environment to actually do that.
Because of all the startups and because of the kind of the alternative aspect of Berlin, which makes it quite distinct in many ways, different from many other cities in Germany. It allowed you feel that you could start up in a completely new career and be successful without feeling, I guess, in any way constrained by the challenges that were ahead.
I mean, I know, Frank, you have been to Berlin many times, and I think you can see it at every street corner that Berlin is a city that is just in the early stages of, like, if Berlin was a person, it would probably be a teenager or maybe in their late teens at the moment. And so there's so much change in that city that if you change yourself, it can be a very fruitful environment.
Of course, there's a lot of energy there, really, and a lot of can do, and people want to try all sorts of different things. So that was good. So let's go back then to where you were talking about you were cold calling people and you were trying to get, and they didn't know, even though they wanted a speechwriter. And of course, let's talk about what type of speechwriting that you were selling.
So I write speeches for all kinds of speakers, but the reality is that it's usually smaller companies that hire me. The big companies, they have specialists to write speeches, and in politics, and at least in Germany, most institutions or members of parliament, they don't really have a budget to hire an outsider to do this kind of job. So, and I work for, small and middle-sized companies, and it's also very interesting because there are so many different. Germany is the whole country is based on the economy is basically based on what's called the German Mittelstand, and there's very many very innovative and interesting companies, and it's really nice to work for them. And these companies, they don't have anyone in their communications department often who is like specialized in writing really good speeches. And when they have really important events, when they have like investors coming, or it's an anniversary, and I don't know, the mayor, the chancellor, or whoever is coming, then they want a specialist, and that's usually where I come in.
So, had you created a whole lot of sample speeches then so that they could get an idea of what you were capable of, or had you maybe recorded them, or possibly written them out? Or so, I mean, they're going to hire you to write a speech. They probably want to know what you're capable of.
That is the thing that is something really difficult, because like sample speeches is like speeches that I've written for somebody else. In most cases, even if I cut out the names and the name of the people and the places, whatever, it's in many cases it's quite easy to figure out who gave that speech for what occasion. And I mean, discretion is one of the most important things for anyone who is a speechwriter. Most of my clients don't want anyone to know that they hire me. So there's no, for example, I almost never get work through word of mouth. Even if my clients are super happy with my work, they won't tell their friends or their peers or their colleagues that they hired me, because they want everyone to think that they themselves came up with the word.
Wow! So it's a kind of a ghostwriter, speechwriter.
Yeah, here the word ghost it really applies. Yeah, it's difficult and for marketing, but on the other hand, since people value anonymity so much, they're willing to like search the internet and just Google speechwriter, and they're willing to get in touch with somebody they don't know because they want this discretion.
So you're giving them the ability to look good, and I guess that's what the product you're selling is, the ability for them to appear much better than they actually are in terms of writing a speech and delivering a speech. Now, I guess there's two distinct items there. One of them being writing the speech so that it actually is coherent and delivers the message in a good way. And the second one is the timing and how the person actually delivers it. And I guess you were probably selling services in both those areas.
I I do coaching, but it rarely happens because it's still. I mean, maybe after the pandemic, people will be more open to do that, like over the internet, over like Skype or Zoom or whatever. But so far, um, um, people would have to fly me in. And as I said, like I'm based in Berlin, and if you know Germany well, it's the middle-sized companies like my clients. They're not based in Berlin. There's not much business in Berlin. There's much more in like around Frankfurt in the south, in in the Ruhrgebiet, in the Rhineland, Hamburg. This is where companies are, but very few of them are in Berlin. So they would have to fly me in to coach them through the delivery. But most of them are happy with just the text.
From an advertising point of view, to getting those people, I guess you were starting to use like something like Google AdWords or other services like at Facebook or other items in order to reach the people who were looking? Or did you use other methods apart from the cold calling, which you mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, I haven't done cold calling in a while. I maybe should get back to that because it's. I mean, it's very scary, and you get a lot of rejection. But like, it's maybe like some I don't know, maybe weightlifting or something like that. It's not particularly joyful, but it feels good after you've done that.
Yes, I guess there is that sales feeling of a salesperson who's managed to call somebody up who never met them before and get them to agree to buy something which they possibly wanted, or maybe they didn't know they wanted, but possibly needed, and agree to. So, in those sort of cases, though, does somebody just agree to do it, or do you have to create a sample of a speech, and then they read it over, and you go back and forth a few times until you get to where it is, or is it just they give you the heads of the items that they want to cover, and you write the speech, and then they just take it and that's it, one shot?
Well, first of all, I can't really give them so many samples, but I usually promise them I work until you're happy, and if it takes like a lot of revisions, then that's fine. But also that almost never happens, because if I write a text and it's like very far from what my customer wants, then the communication beforehand went wrong. So what we usually do, my client and I, we will talk on the phone, and we spend as much time as necessary to figure out what the message actually is.
Okay.
And so first I want to figure out what is it that you really want to communicate? What do you want your audience to take home after that event? And then we talk about how we could wrap that up in the speech. And so there should not be any misunderstanding about what the message is, what we actually want to communicate. And then there might be details that we have to change, that the client says, oh, I didn't like this anecdote so much, can we do something else? Or this joke is a little bit like, I don't know, this is not my sense of humor, can we change that? So the details that have to be changed. And often I just offer, like, if we, for example, if we decide to have a joke at the beginning, so to open up, to loosen the mood in the room, then I might should suggest 3 jokes, and they can just pick the one that they like most.
Obviously, it's a key aspect to a good communication, which is having humor involved in the speech itself.
I advertise my services in Germany, so I think the reputation that Germans have of not being funny, I don't think that is true. But there are many people who would say, like many people who run companies who would say, when I give a speech, that is not a moment where I want to be funny or humorous. So in that sense, many people are still quite serious. And so I can't sell as much humor as I would like to. Let's put it this way.
But I guess it's in the particular cases. I mean, we're going to move on in a while to talking about wedding speeches, which is a particular case where you probably find that humor is very important, as opposed to maybe sell a speech where it's a serious business introduction. And though even in those environments, and I guess it varies from company to company, but if there's a lot of people in the audience, I'm guessing they would want to warm them up a little bit with some piece of humor that gets them interested to hear what's going to follow.
Yeah, first of all, I think most of my clients say, I want some humor in there. But then when you give them the option and say, this is what you could say, or these are 3 things that you could say in that situation, often they say, well, let's just cut it out. It's because humor involves a risk. Humor involves more risk than other ways of communication. And I think many people are still quite insecure about their position, being being on stage with a microphone, and then when it really comes to the point, should I say that or not? Should I run the risk or not? Many people decide against it, which I find quite sad, because humor can really be used very strategically in a speech to maybe, if you're you can get like, you can draw attention to what you have to say. If you make people laugh, you can get their approval by making them laugh. If they if they if they don't, if you know from the beginning, I'm not the kind of person that this audience will like, it could help you a lot to to get them onto your side by making a joke. So it's really something they can use and should use strategically, but unfortunately some people often don't want to run that risk.
I guess it has to be balanced with the possibility that, especially in these days of, in some companies, certainly politically correctness being maybe over the top sometimes. But the fact is that humor is often based around actually finding something humorous about a particular section of a community. And that can sometimes be politically incorrect, but it can also be very funny. And so it's a thin line, I guess, there between getting a lot of people on your side or alienating certain people because the joke didn't quite go down with certain people in the audience.
I think there's something that, I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but I think there is something that British people are much better than Germans, and that is like laughing about themselves, not taking themselves always so seriously. And so I think when I hear speeches that are given in England, I see that speechwriters there have a lot more space to try things, to be funny. And in Germany, it has to be, when you talk about political correctness, you can't even touch any area that might offend anyone. It's more, you have to be, the jokes have to come from something else, not from laughing about the speaker. You basically have to like write in a surprising way in order to make people laugh.
So it's quite a challenge if you're going to have humor in there. So, and we talked about how you had a lot of communication, first of all, with the person who is you're writing the speech for. So you know what the issues are, what they want to communicate, how they want to communicate it, who the audience are. All those items are all in there. And then you sit down and write a speech. And when you've actually written the speech, and do they ever give you a recording of the speech afterwards, or is it just you deliver them a script that they finally agree to and then that's it?
Very often, unfortunately, I don't get any feedback. So people would say, "Oh yeah, I like your text," and they will pay me, which is the most important feedback that I want, of course. But then it's like, some clients get me video recording. Sometimes I'm invited to the event, which can be very interesting, especially when it's like, when it's like when the event is some kind of importance. But often I don't hear anything, and it's quite sad. You don't know. But also, I must say that first time I ever, I at the very beginning, I wrote a speech for a lawyer. It was the head of a lawyers organization, and I wrote a speech for him, and that speech was delivered in the Paulskirche in Frankfurt. You must know that Paulskirche is a very has a very historically a big meaning in Germany. It's the so-called the cradle of our democracy, or the first attempt of democracy in Germany, and it's still like many important events are there. And then the speech was written, and the speaker, he read it like word by word, and I was sitting in the first row, and actually one of my former law professors sat like next to me, and I was so there was actually humor in there. I was so scared that this may go wrong, and this was one of the first speeches I'd ever written, and it was like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to experience that a lot, because I think for most speechwriters it's a very, very exciting moment where your words are performed by someone else who isn't the performer. So many things, like many jokes that just go wrong. And so that's that can be a very nerve-wracking experience.
But if you make a comparison with, we'll say, a musician who writes some music for somebody else, They would like to hear how it sounded, right? How that person interpreted their music, or an actor. If you wrote a play, you would like to see how a director and actors interpret it. So I guess there is some beneficial from it, but I can appreciate that it isn't always possible depending on in the business context. But let's talk about for a second in the context of weddings, because you've done quite a bit of work in that area of wedding speeches.
So yeah, when I started out as a speechwriter, I think it's really important to get a lot of experience because I didn't have the experience. And so I didn't have a background. There are many speechwriters who have like worked for a member of parliament or something as an assistant. I had never done that. So I really wanted this experience of talking to a complete stranger on the phone, trying to figure out what they want to say and write a text that they're happy with. And writing wedding speeches, especially at the beginning, was one of the more easy ways to get work. It's not really well paid because it's like private people paying it out of their own pocket. So it's different from writing a speech for a CEO for a company. But I did that like a lot. The first couple of years, I wrote many wedding speeches. But it's also a lot of fun. You hear like you write the speech for the father of the bride who doesn't like the groom. You know, this is really like for a speechwriter. I think it's a great challenge. How do you find the right words? And that was a lot of fun. It's just that the return you get, like the money or the long run, it doesn't really work. It's not really sustainable. So, but the nice thing about wedding speeches is that the situations are quite comparable. So there's always some level of tension between the groom and the father of the bride, and there's always something that the best man knows that he better shouldn't tell the audience, and it's like stuff that everyone can play with, and yeah.
Okay, well, that's quite enjoyable, I guess, as well. And I guess you moved on and you created some books for people writing speeches as well.
Yeah, most importantly, I created a website. So I knew that most people who got to my website were interested in wedding speeches, but I also knew that 99% of the people who come to my website looking for like blog articles and something about wedding speeches, they don't want or can't pay my fee. So I created a website where all these little jokes that I know, I collected them. And so when you're like, let's say you're best man, you can go to my website and you would see speech openers, funny ways to introduce yourself, you know, how to make jokes about the groom, and there's a very big thing. I must have like it's probably thousands of little jokes and I extended it for birthdays, for wedding anniversaries, and whatever, so people can go to my website and just find the kind of jokes that I would probably include in the speech if I were to write it.
And do they buy those, or are some of them free, or maybe a mix of both?
Some of them are free, but it's a paid service. Yeah. So for people who want to access all the little like nuggets that I've found over the years, people who want to access all of them, they have to pay a fee.
Of course, and they're getting huge advantage of years of writing speeches for various different situations, I guess, as well. So, what about the teaching the workshops? Can you tell me a little bit about those?
So first of all, I think if you start like I started to become a speechwriter, but from the very beginning, I was very sure that I didn't want to just offer a service. I wanted to create a business. And I think the difference is that if you just offer a service, you're just like you work like an employee, but you are not an employee. People tell you what to do, and you do it. You pretty much sell your time. And I wanted to do something that is more scalable. This is why I designed the wedding speech website. And I also wanted to teach, because then I'm not giving my time to one person, but ideally to 5 or 10 people in a room who I teach, who I help writing the speeches, who I can consult. So that was one of like the like early on when I started, I just decided to get as much speech writing experience as possible, and then started teaching seminars on speech writing, and then I designed the website. So I really wanted to become a business.
And then marketing that business, and we talked a little bit about it earlier on, but I guess the key thing is that people have to be able to find you and know what services are being delivered. As soon as they want to do anything with speeches, they have to go and search and find you. So you use Google, I guess, primarily.
Yes, because Google works, or for me, social media doesn't work that well. For the simple reason, I would always compare myself with a dentist. Most people don't want to be connected with their dentist on Facebook. And if their dentist buys a new like drill, they're not going to be interested, because as soon as the pain is over, the whole topic, they don't want to be. A dentist is interesting to you when it hurts, and this is the same with me. People, even sometimes when I talk to people 2 weeks before they have to give a speech, and they say, "No, it's absolutely no problem. I can do that myself." And then, but after they spend, let's say, an entire weekend in front of like a completely empty Word document, then Monday morning, their motivation to actually have somebody help them is high enough, and then they will go online. They will maybe try to find a solution. Mostly Google, but any kind of like search engine would be beneficial to that. Where people say, "I have a problem and I need to have it solved right away."
I guess that's as a key element in terms of getting your customers. So let's look a little bit of the more recent areas that you've been looking at in developing courses. I know you've recently developed an online course. Maybe you could talk about the experience of creating it from a content point of view, and also from all the learnings that you've had to do in order to be able to create a video course.
I mean, I asked you for for advice especially about the technical aspects. But it was the story pretty much is that I read I think in February last year, I read an article that said that the market for online courses would go up, would grow 6 times to the revenue of early 2020 within 2 years. So, and that was an article that was written before the pandemic. So when the pandemic struck, as you can imagine, like for a speechwriter, a pandemic is not really helpful for your business, because there are no events, so there are no speeches. So it was like that was like a challenging time. So I thought, okay, what? But also I didn't have so many deadlines, and didn't have so much stress. So I asked myself, what can I do? And I decided to design an online course. And I thought, yes, probably like I've taught courses on speechwriting already, so I probably have to compress that into a course, write it down quickly, and then perform it in front of a camera and put it online, and that's it. And I thought it was like a maybe 2-3 month I would need for that. And then I think with all the projects I've had in my business and in other areas of life, I think this was the most difficult one.
Well, there's a lot of different skills that you had to learn. I should just make a point here for people who are listening to this on audio only, that there is a bird occasionally squawking in the background, and you're in the garden. Just so to give some context to what that squawking that's been going on behind you, but. But going back to the item here, there's so many different items in terms of creating the course, making the video yourself, setting it up technically correct, editing the video, creating the structure for the course itself, and then I guess creating a means by which that course can be purchased.
Actually, when the crisis struck, I was in Barcelona. And so here in Spain, we had a very strict lockdown. You were not allowed to leave the house. You could go like grocery shopping and take out the garbage, and that was pretty much it. And after a while, I found out that I could go to the roof of the house. So I would take walks on the roof, like walk in circles, and listen to podcasts about how to build audio courses. And these podcasts, they basically they want to sell you courses on how to do online courses, and and they make it sound so easy. They tell you, yeah, that's so easy, and you do this and you do that, and you make like, I don't know, 200K, and it's just. And I listened to them. I wouldn't say I believed everything I heard, but it sounded very promising, and I was quite stressed out about the pandemic and everything. And I thought, yeah, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be easy. And then even to a course that I already taught in person, to compress that in actually like videos that I perform in front of a camera, like it had to be really, really dense little pieces of information, and even that took me so much time. It was just it felt like writing a book. And then once that was finished, I had to figure out how to set up the camera and the lights. That was very challenging. And then, as you may know, because I sent you my first attempts for feedback, you also have to perform in front of a camera, and I was terrible. I was really not good at it.
It just needs practice, though. The thing is that you're trying to do a lot of things at the same time. You're trying to deliver the course and you're recording the video yourself. So you've set it up on a camera, on a tripod. You've set the camera up on a tripod and you've set the lights up on the microphone, and you have to check that everything is actually working correctly and appear relaxed and deliver the content. So a lot of challenges in order to deliver a course.
Yeah, it is. And this is like, also you need to have the room, and at the time so at the time I was recording, we were back in Berlin in our two, like the apartment has two not very big rooms, and one room was I think for 2 weeks was completely like, it was the recording studio. So my girlfriend couldn't like use it. It was, even on a personal level, it was really, it was challenging. And then I recorded everything, and then of course you have to edit it, and that also I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to control the entire process, and then I edited it, and I finally had everything finished. But I didn't want to put it on one of these platforms. I wanted to control the interaction that I have with my customers. I wanted to get the email address of the customers, so I had to set up a course environment on my website, which was also much more challenging than I thought. So I didn't do it full time, but it took me an entire year from the decision to have an online course to actually have it ready to purchase on my website.
But you're set up now in order to do other courses and deliver other courses and sell those courses. And let's talk about the future a little bit now. And I know you're sitting in Barcelona at the moment, right? In the sunshine. Well, looks like it's sunshine from here. And I'm guessing that you're going to stay there for a while. Are you planning to do further courses and further work from Barcelona, or will you be coming back to Berlin in order to do some further work?
Well, the question where we're actually going to live, that's an ongoing discussion. But right now it's not actually sunny, but it's a little cloudy day, but it's really nice to be outside in the garden. So I really love it here. I have to go back to Berlin at some point and then make a final decision where actually it's going to be like where the home base is supposed to be. But going back to the courses, the good thing, I think, once you have like figured it out, how to make the course, how to shoot it, how to get like results that are at least good enough or even like good. Like once you have that, I could set up my environment. Like I have a bag that is maybe like this. Can you see, like this size? And it has the tripod, the camera. It really contains all the material I need. I work with a green screen, and I could set it up almost anywhere. And I'm definitely planning to do more courses I want to really make this grow. And the good thing about an online course is once you have it, there's not so much. I offer the course with coaching sessions, so I may have to like talk to my customers about their speeches and their texts, like here and there. But basically the idea is to create more and more courses and to provide this kind of also environment for people who want to learn this particular type of writing or this particular type of communicating. I want to provide the environment where people can really, from the start, from the basics of speech writing up to being really good and professional.
That sounds like an interesting and very exciting future ahead. Touring around different locations, setting up and running courses, and then marketing them. I guess as soon as you finish completed editing them. But it's a nice plan, I have to say, and I'm sure the next stage of your online course, which I know is completed now, the first one is going to be the marketing of that while you're developing some other courses. But let's wrap it up here at that, Matthias. And it's been really interesting to hear the journey of your life and of your work and how things have changed over a while. Thanks very much. And it's been really good to have you on this podcast.
My pleasure, Frank. Anytime.
Thank you. Bye.